Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 4th regular meeting of Nanaimo City Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Namick First Nation. Our clerk tonight is Ms. Nicolina Vakar, and I want to recognize Ms. Vakar tonight because she is supposed to be on holiday, but because of illness, amongst other staff, she's come back from her vacation tonight to clerk for us, so thank you very much. We also have Councillor Brown attending electronically. Tonight's regular meeting of Council is being held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, would you please write down your name and the agenda item on the question period sign-up sheet, which is by on my left, the double doors. Please note that the Council Procedure Bylaw has been updated, so questions will only be taken on staff reports, consent items, or other business items. Before we start this meeting, I would, however, like to take a few moments to remind those who are attending in person about the rules of decorum for all Council and committee meetings. A meeting of Council is intended to be a place where democracy can freely take place in a respectful and safe manner. The Council Chambers is a workplace, and there are considerations Council and staff must make to ensure that a safe work environment exists in accordance with WorkSafe BC regulations. To support this, disrespectful conduct will not be tolerated, so we ask that there be no cheering or jeering or other outbursts from the gallery at any time. This will ensure that anyone speaking, whether it be a delegation, a member of Council, or staff, is not interrupted and can make their point freely without distraction or fear of ridicule. In instances where a speaker is being inappropriate or has exceeded their time limit, their microphone will be cut off. Similarly, if there are outbursts by any person in the gallery, they will be asked to stop, and if they do not comply, they may be asked to leave as permitted under Section 133 of the Community Charter. If necessary, Council may call a recess in order to reset the environment of the Council chambers. It is our belief that if everyone is respectful of these basic considerations, this meeting and future meetings will be more effective in furthering the business of the City of Nanaimo. The first item on the agenda tonight is the introduction of late items. Ms. Vakar, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have several items that introduced as late items for the agenda tonight, starting with Agenda Item 12A, Cemetery Amendment Bylaw number 7084.02, adding delegation from Kevin Hills. Agenda Item 12C, rezoning application number RA 504335 3rd Street, adding the following delegations: Gloria Bell, James McRae, Jim Hansen, Christine Johnson, Julia Sheffield, Pros Chen, and Toby Seward. For Agenda Item 12D, Development Permit Application number DP 1351-27 Hispaniola Place, adding delegation from Chris Midgley, Landscape Architect, Kinship Design Art Ecology. And finally, adding Agenda Item 16B, Salvation Army New Hope Center request for letter of support regarding additional emergency shelter beds at 19 Nicole Street. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion for the adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Manley, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Eastmere, seconded Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Mayor's report. I only have a couple of items tonight. We're very happy to announce that since the last council meeting, the City of Nanaimo has revealed a sci-fi inspired sculptures in Colliery Dam Park. Robert Turf's temporary public art project, The Rewilders, was designed collaboratively with the Nanaimo youth. Located in the Colliery Dam Park, tucked into the greenery where invasive ivy grows, the two dynamic sculptures symbolize rewilding, the practice of restoring natural habitats. Depicted in the act of removing invasive species and planting native plants, they represent the importance of land stewardship. The rewilders have been deliberately installed in Colliery Dam Park, where the City of Nanaimo and community volunteers are actively involved in removing invasive species and restoring natural habitats. The artwork underscores the significance of native ecosystems which support local wildlife, boost climate resilience, and endure environmental challenges like drought and climate change. So delighted to see this, and hope all of you will take a chance to go out and have a look yourselves. I'm also delighted to honor my predecessor's predecessor. John Rattan has been honored by receiving the Freedom of the City of Nanaimo. John, as many of you know, unless you're a real newcomer to town, was a former mayor and a very prominent community leader. He'll be awarded the prestigious Freedom of the City. It's the city's highest civic honor. And this fall, he will receive it in recognition of his 61 years of dedication to community service, business, and local governance, which have significantly contributed to the growth and enrichment of this city. He has a long history of community involvement. He played an integral role in shaping Nanaimo's development. His commitment to community service began over 6 decades ago, and his contributions span various sectors, including tourism, commerce, and politics. Additionally, he was a key figure in the Loyal Nanaimo Bathtub Society for 53 years, serving as Commodore and Chair from 1984 to 1991, and helping grow what is an iconic event in this city. In addition to his work with the Bathtub Society, Mr. Rattan was appointed to the Nanaimo Harbor Commission in 1985 and later served 6 years as Chair of the Nanaimo Port Authority. He was also involved with Tourism Nanaimo for 8 terms, including 4 years as President, and contributed to many other local organizations such as the Downtown and Nanaimo North Rotary Clubs, the Community Policing Advisory Board, and the Nanaimo Hospitality Association. In addition, of course, as many of you know, he served 2 terms as mayor from 2008 to 2014. His leadership was pivotal during a period of significant city growth, including the expansion of the Nanaimo Airport, which he supported as chairman of the Support YCD Committee. And he was also recognized for his efforts, likewise, in promoting tourism, downtown development, community safety. And finally, in 2008, he was named Citizen of the Year by the Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce, further highlighting his dedication to the community. I should remind everyone that the selection for some person to be granted Freedom of the City represents a unanimous decision of council. And so I think represents fairly the community views of John Rattan's incredible length of service and commitment to the city. And what evening would be complete in Nanaimo without talking about pickleball? On October 31st, Halloween, the city happily opened the Beban Park pickleball courts at 12:30 that day. 8 new courts. They're located right in Beban Park near the Beban Park Golf and Driving Range, and were created with input from local pickleball players who happen to be one of the most enthusiastic groups I think anyone in the city has ever encountered, and the Nanaimo Pickleball Club. The new facilities, as I say, which consist of 8 courts, add to the many recreational opportunities available at Beban Park, including swimming, skating, tennis, golf, mountain bike riding, and BMX riding. The courts are fully fenced. They feature a specialty anti-slip sport coating and are equipped with event power and a water fountain. The main entrance is located on the west side of the courts. Bleachers, partially funded by the Nanaimo Pickleball Club, will be situated in a central viewing area arranged in a pyramid format so spectators can sit on both sides. The total project, not including the bleachers, was $553,700. The bleachers will be ordered and installed at a future date and will be partially funded by an $8,000 contribution from the Nanaimo Pickleball Club. In the coming months, the city will convert the former Beaufort pickleball courts into youth courts supporting mixed recreational opportunities, including basketball and hockey. So a good news story for the pickleball players in Nanaimo. In terms of rise and report, Ms. Ricard, we have 2 items to announce. One, that Council appointed Donna Hayes to the Nanaimo Port Authority Board of Directors effective October 21st, 2024 for a 3-year term ending October 21st, 2027. I think Donna Hayes is well known to most anyone in this community who's paid attention to what it is to be a first-class citizen. She has helped lead the campaign to see that we get a patient tower and a cath lab here in our community. She is the active head of RW Wall Construction Ltd. and has been involved in a number of community events and has served a number of years on the Port Authority Board already, so we congratulate her. And I'm delighted also to announce that Council has appointed our councillor, Aaron Hemmons, to sit as the trustee to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board, and Councillor Eastmere as an alternate for the period January 1st to December 31st, 2025. And I might add that Councillor Hemmons is actually the chair of the Library Board, and we wish her well should that position come up for re-election. Not that we're stumping her campaigning. And that concludes the rise and report. On to presentations. Mr. Sims, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very pleased to introduce Ms. Meryl Ditchburn-Hines, who is the President of the Public Works Association of BC, who has an award, and she'll describe that award. But I'll tip it a little bit, but I'm really very, very proud of the opportunity for Council and the community to witness an award given to our own Shauna Drennan. And just as one of the many little things that Shauna's involved in, is she's the mastermind behind the massive water main project that we've been working on for a few years. So we're really pleased to recognize her here, and very happy to have Meryl here as well. Thank you.
Ms. Hines, good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate this. And the floor, as they say, is yours.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Krogh and Council. The Public Works Association of British Columbia is an organization that's dedicated to supporting and promoting public works professionals and advancing essential infrastructure and services across British Columbia. A key part of our mission is the PWABC Awards Program, which celebrates outstanding achievements and contributions within the industry. Through these awards, we recognize individuals, teams, and projects that demonstrate innovation, dedication, and impact on local communities. The Women's Ambassador Award is a special recognition within the Public Works Association. This award celebrates the achievements and contributions of women in the public works field who serve as role models, mentors, and advocates. I'm honored to be able to present this award to Shauna, who has spent the last 17 years with the City of Nanaimo. Not only is her dedication to the profession unparalleled, her attention to detail is unwavering. For those of you who haven't had the pleasure to watch Shauna in action, she's currently a water resource specialist whose passion and hard work is leading the Midtown Water Supply Project. She was also the mastermind behind the transition to the current city projects in the citywide project management system and many other infrastructure projects throughout the city. Congratulations to Shauna. Woo!
I just want to say a couple of words for a moment. This is a prestigious award, and this is reflective of the hard work, dedication, talent, and leadership that Ms. Drennan has shown. Shauna, the city is indeed very proud to have you in its employ. The citizens of Nanaimo are lucky to have you. I note here as well, you're supported by your family tonight. I suspect maybe they've got a crown you're going to be receiving later from them, and you will go home as the queen of public works, at least for one evening anyway. As I say, this is quite the award, and your leadership on that particular project, which has been a massive undertaking for the city and very necessary, is much appreciated. So if I may, I'm going to step forward and we'll do what's known in the trade as the grip and grin, please.
Say Public Works.
Well, back to the more mundane. Committee minutes, these are just for receipt. We have the minutes of the Public Safety Committee meeting held in the Boardroom Service and Resource Center, 411 Dunsmuir, on Wednesday, June the 12th. We have the minutes of the Special Public Safety Committee meeting held in the same boardroom on September the 4th, and the minutes of the Design Advisory Panel held in the same place on September the 12th. As I say, just for receipt. Could I have a motion for adoption of the consent items, and are there any items that anyone wishes to speak to separately? If not, motion to receive them. Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. We are now on to delegations unrelated to agenda items, and the first is Corey Gervais, CEO of the Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Gervais, good evening and welcome. I think you've heard the drill often enough. 5 minutes. When there's a minute left, I'll let you know if you're still speaking, and you're always welcome to speak to council. Thank you.
I'll do my best, and good evening, Your Worship and Council. Thank you for, it's a pleasure to be here tonight and update you on the activities of the Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce. I've been the CEO for 16 months now, and I feel it's time to check in with you and let you know what we've been working on, what our priorities are for 2025, and give you an update on projects that we partner with and receive support from the City of Nanaimo. Recently, the Chamber Board has been actively working on laying the foundation for 3 years. It's been a difficult time for businesses post-COVID, and while the Chamber of Commerce has been here offering our support and connecting businesses with the resources they need, we can't forget that the Chamber is also a business, and we face the same challenges such as labor, force shortages, increased prices, property damage, and theft. However, we see a bright future for Nanaimo and a lot to celebrate as we look forward to 2025 and beyond. With a fully functioning network of supportive business organizations now up and running, like the Prosperity Corporation, Tourism Nanaimo, the Downtown Business Association, we feel that the city has helped close a gap for business resources in Nanaimo. And together with the Chamber of Commerce, we're poised to achieve our vision and mission. Just better click forward. The Nanaimo Chamber has become laser focused on building strong, healthy organization and business community, starting with effective board governance. The objectives are foundational and purpose-driven, and we focus on providing the right mix of resources to complement that supportive network. But this evening, I want to focus on 3 objectives of meaningful member engagement, engaged active policy and advocacy, and strong financial foundation. The Chamber excels at meaningful engagement, and sometimes it's thought that the only thing we do, but there are more to us than events and networking. The Chamber Health Benefits Plan, for instance, which is hands down the best benefits package for small businesses in our province. In 2025, we'll be offering opportunities for businesses to pay monthly for membership in conjunction with the plan, making extended health care, dental, and chamber support attainable for small businesses in our community. In 2024, we produced 40 events for members and the business community to network, learn, and from each other, with over 900 unique participants and 620 businesses. In 2024, we launched 2 new programs for our members. The Nanaimo Chamber Volunteer Program works with people that are looking to get involved specifically in the business community, from students to seniors, newcomers, and job seekers. Our team interviews, trains, and prepares volunteers for the business setting. Member businesses can then apply for volunteers for their events or projects, and the Chamber will work to help find the right fit. Sorry. Chamber U was launched as our newest platform for business professional development. This year, we hosted our first semester of learning each Wednesday, including cybersecurity, marketing, business continuity, and bookkeeping, which we choose the subjects based on feedback from our membership and find subject matter experts in the community to teach them. The Vandalism Relief Grant, which we administrate for the City of Nanaimo, is a business saver for businesses that have had to use the grant. In 2024, we exhausted $30,000 by October, with over 23 businesses helped and thousands of graffiti tags removed. This grant helps businesses clean up and stay open right after the incident and keeps graffiti tags down, which helps lower vandalism incidents. Which brings me to the importance of a strong foundation, financial foundation. We don't want to build revenue streams that compete with the Nanaimo businesses, but rather adds a layer of support to our community. The Commercial Street Night Market
1 minute.
Oh, I'm going backwards, sorry. There we go. The Commercial Street Night Market is our largest non-dues revenue stream. This event does 3 things for downtown. It assists in creating a vital downtown core, brings 25,000 people to downtown over 11 weeks, and creates interactive family-friendly events. And it is with the help of the Downtown Revitalization Grant that ensures that we continue to produce this event at a consistent level. And we've heard from our vendors loud and clear that it's the best on Vancouver Island. I don't have much time left, so I'm just going to skip to the end so we have time for questions. So that's my presentation tonight, and thank you again for the opportunity to share these highlights with you and what we're planning for 2025. And from all of us from the Chamber of Commerce, the Board of Directors, the team in the office, and our volunteers, we thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gervais, and if I just may say on behalf of council, having been familiar with the Chamber of Commerce through my well, I won't say many years, that's not, a number of years. Our chamber here in Nanaimo represents a wonderfully diverse group of organizations, profit, nonprofits, profitable businesses, big businesses, small businesses, and we're lucky to have it active and doing well. Are there any questions for Ms. Gervais?
No questions?
I think you're getting off easy tonight.
Okay, I think so. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The next delegation is Patrick Yukostoff, and it's public perception of the third alternative approval process for the Public's Workyard update. Mr. Yukostoff, please. And just to repeat the drill, 5 minutes, and when you're at 1 minute left, I will tell you have a minute left, please. Thank you. If you could introduce yourself for the record.
Patrick Yukostoff, resident of Pleasant Valley for the last 28 years. So it's been about a year since I started to get involved with opposing the Public Works Yard. I'm not opposing the entire Works Yard. There are certain aspects that I don't agree with. And sadly, what seems to have happened is that there is a huge disconnect between the city and the average Joe. Chestnut Street, a year ago, getting ready for a job, talking with the customer, and this lady pushing a stroller with the kid in the stroller and a clipboard goes by. I say, "Good morning." She says, "Good morning," takes about 3 steps, turns around on her heel and says, "Did you hear what the city's trying to do with that $48.5 million? I said, "Yeah, I did, and I don't agree with the way they're doing it." She says, "Sign my petition." I signed it. The guy I'm doing the work for, he signed it. I said, "Look, I haven't heard a lot. Give me 10. I'm going to gauge the reaction with my neighbors." I took 10, got home, took those 10. Within an hour, I had them signed. 9 of them, 9 out of 10, this is a year ago, hadn't heard a thing about the city trying to borrow money for this facility. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. I had also mentioned this was the day before cutoff. So, fast forward to springtime. This time I had a little bit more energy. I hit door to door. I took care of quite a large part of Pleasant Valley. I was 90% successful. I just had a blurb. The city wants to borrow $48.5 million. They're doing it through AAP. Do you think this should go to a vote? Yep. Where do I sign? There's a few, very few, that did not want to sign. Some of them have vested interest, either with the city or as a contractor. Some just wouldn't sign. It's like, no, that's fine. Self-preservation. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. But the vast majority of people that I've talked to have no idea that this is going on. This needs to be educated. I'm just going to fast forward here, because I see I'm down to 2 minutes already. I want to talk about the thing that you did right, and that was this flyer. This mail out that went out about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. You did this right. This is starting to get people to talk about it. What I'll say you did wrong with it is you sent this out a year too late. because all this time, public perception is that you tried to sneak this through. Not too much notice, not too much communication. Whatever was not done was finally done. But by this time, your taxpayers
And
in the
1 minute.
city are saying, too little, too late, where do I sign? So, that being said, I'm very disappointed with a few things that have happened in the last couple of months. One is, this is supposed to be a democratic society. We should have the right to vote. Whether you go to referendum or not is up to city and council, so be it. But for people to not even know that this process is going on, that is a huge, huge miscarriage of democracy. It really is. My suggestion, and I see I've got about 10 seconds, promote this for a year. Get the little models before, after. This is what we need to do. Engage with your citizens. Please. I don't want to go out in the rain again and collect petitions.
And if you could wrap up, please.
I'm wrapped up. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Didn't get to say all I wanted to say, but I got to say something. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. Appreciate it. The next delegation is Gilles Yaron, Managing Director, Circular Innovation Lighthouse, re the Vancouver Island Building Material Exchange Program. Good evening, Mr. Yaron. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yaron, but that's fine,
Yaron.
thanks.
Thank you. Please. And you've heard the drill, 5 minutes.
Yes.
Please.
Good evening, Your Lordship and Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you this evening. My name is Gil Yaron. I'm the Managing Director of Circular Innovation for Lighthouse. Lighthouse is a nonprofit organization. Lighthouse is a nonprofit organization with a mission to advance what we call regenerative and circular practices in the built environment. And I'm here this evening to present to you about a program that is running in Nanaimo right now called the Building Material Exchange. I know that the City of Nanaimo, along with the Regional District of Nanaimo, has shown real leadership in the circular economy, being part of the Circular Cities Initiative in the past. And I'm also grateful to the City of Nanaimo for the support that you've provided to this program, the Building Material Exchange, through the Community Economic Sustainability Project Grant. We face a collective problem here on the island and as well nationally with about 1/3 of all waste that we generate coming from construction and demolition practices. About 10% of all the materials that are brought onto a construction site go directly into landfill. They do not make it into buildings, they're just wasted materials. And we're going to see about 30,000 homes demolished across Canada, including several thousand every year in Metro Vancouver and hundreds on the island, resulting in millions of tons of waste. And so we've introduced a program called the Building Material Exchange. This program basically connects companies that are generating waste, whether it's contractors or manufacturers of building materials, with companies that can use these materials in their manufacturing. Someone coined this the Tinder of the construction sector, and I kind of like that term, so I'm going to stick with it. We're basically moving us from a linear economy to a circular economy, which I know that Council is very familiar with that, so I'm not going to belabor that. This program relies on 3 pillars. One is match support. We work with companies to identify what their waste streams are and companies that need materials, and then we try to match them. We're the matchmaker. We're also creating an online marketplace. Think of Facebook Marketplace, but this is a dedicated marketplace just for the construction sector to exchange materials. And then we're hosting events called the BMX Challenge events, which are like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. You probably are familiar with those programs. Basically, we're bringing together businesses into a room, and companies can pitch circular ideas that they have around, for instance, a company might be manufacturing. We have local companies here that are manufacturing new timber out of salvaged timber, and they can pitch that, and then companies in the audience can express interest in forming a match with them. The benefits of the BMX program are multiple. One is that companies can start turning their waste into a revenue stream, which is really the whole concept around the circular economy, reduce their waste management costs, and also their material costs by using salvage materials instead of new materials. And then some other benefits, not least of which is saving on landfill closure costs. All regions and local governments are facing pressures with landfills that are filling up very quickly, and this is one of the programs that helps to divert materials away from landfill and extend the life of those facilities. So we've engaged about 750 companies on South and Central Vancouver Island. We have about 100 companies registered with the program currently. And this is just an example of one project. Fortunately, I didn't have an Nanaimo example here, but from Victoria, where brick from one, yeah, I'll be done. Brick from one home was used for the interior of a new commercial office. So again, I'd like to thank the City of Nanaimo for your support, along with the 3 regional governments in South and Central Island, and a number of other organizations you can see listed here. And I'd like to invite council and anyone else who's interested to attend the BMX Challenge event, which is actually tomorrow evening at the White Sails Brewing Company, where folks from the construction sector and other industries will be hearing pitches from companies that are trying to move the city and the region in a circular direction. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. In order, Councillors Armstrong and Perino, please.
Thank you. My question is, let's say you're a home builder that's going to do a bunch of renovations. If I was to call up somebody, would they come and do an assessment for me, or do I have to do it on my own?
Sorry, if they were doing a
Well, like, let's say I'm doing
deconstruction?
a big renovation at my place, and I want to follow this process, but I don't know how to do it. Is there somebody that would come out and say, yes, this can be reused, that can be reused? Or do I just guess?
No, there are companies out there that, demolition companies that focus on deconstruction, so they can come out and do an assessment like that for you, absolutely.
And does that cost them, do you know?
You'd have, to get a quote, probably not. To do the deconstruction, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I heard Mr. Yarn at the Vancouver Island Economic Summit, and I was so impressed, and it's hard to get the same visual with just 5 minutes, but I appreciate you coming very much. I'm just wondering if you could explain a little bit about your funding and what, I mean, do you have funding to keep going for years? How does this work?
Yeah, so the Regional District of Nanaimo was the first party through their zero waste grant to support us with a $64,000 grant, which we then leveraged and got the Capital Regional District and Cowichan Valley Regional District on board. So we're very excited to have the 3 regional districts, as I mentioned, and the City of Nanaimo as well came on board. And we are now just in the process of securing funding for the 2nd year, and I'm very pleased to say that the regional district has expressed a commitment to supporting this project going into its 2nd year.
Well, thank you for being here. I just think this is so important. I'm just very impressed, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrook, please.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. Yeah, just recently, all the regional districts on the island and the coastal communities got together, and they looked collectively like we all pooled our landfill area, how many years we have left before we all run out, and it's about 35 years collectively. So that's going to come up pretty quick, and the construction and demolition waste makes up a big portion of that. So just a big thank you for the efforts of your program and bringing companies together. I think there's a lot of waste out there and a lot of opportunity to make money. So thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the big key, is to turn the waste, the concept of waste, into a resource. I think that's what we really, there's so much untapped opportunity there. And so thank you for support again.
Before you go, I just want to say, as someone who was raised in a house where I heard so much about the Great Depression that I almost think I lived through it, the concept of waste and how much we do waste in modern society has always been really troubling for me, just on a human and a personal level. So I encourage what you're doing, and thank you for doing it. There's an awful lot we could do to make our communities better, more economically viable, and save the planet all at the same time. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the last delegation is Dan Hula, re-declaring a state of climate emergency. Mr. Hula, you know the drill. 5 minutes. When there's a minute left, I'll let you know. If you could just introduce yourself for the record, please.
Okay. We should be one slide back from that. That's not me. Yep. Nope. Yep. There we go.
All right.
Okay.
Please.
Good evening. My name's Dan Hula. First, to the Legion members, thank you very much for your service. I'm speaking tonight about declaring local emergencies, in particular the climate emergency we've been in since 2019. I have several concerns regarding the current so-called climate emergency. The public was not provided with a database or clear substantiated evidence to support the decision in the first place. There was no mandate from the public provided for this action. Much evidence is and was available to show that there's absolutely no need for declaring a climate emergency, and there's no evidence for the continuation of the climate emergency. So this being the case, it begs the question, who really made the decision and why? The repercussions of this declaration have the effect of justifying local decisions to go green. This sounds pretty from the outside, but the facts show a much different reality. The staggering amount of energy that goes into making an electric vehicle vastly outweighs the amount required to make a gasoline vehicle. The ethics of mining for electric vehicle manufacturing substitutes paying jobs in the oil industry for child labor in the cobalt manufacturing and for environmental devastation in lithium mining. The life expectancy of electric vehicles is shorter, and replacement batteries cost tens of thousands of dollars. The electromagnetic radiation exposure from riding in an electric vehicle is considerably more than from a leaky microwave and can result in testicular cancer. The original data provided to create the climate change scenario has been proven to be incredibly biased and skewed, as shown in this article from Zero Hedge. I'll highlight this part. A growing chorus of climate scientists are saying that the temperature readings are faulty and that the trillions of dollars poured in are based on a problem that doesn't exist. The extremely knowledgeable Cliff High points out that the original UN ongoing data has been incredibly skewed from the start, and I'll read his aloud in his words. He said, for the UN climate science, they sent out, to start with, about 10,000 letters to scientists. Only 3,000 responded. 2,924 said the UN is full of it about climate crisis. 77 letters only were chosen for the study, and one was dissenting. So 76 supported, ergo, there was overwhelming support from scientists, skewing the data like this. Now, I do agree that humans do weather modification, as evidenced by this 1955 newspaper headline, and there is no denying the existence of chemtrails. I've personally watched strips of chemtrails blend into an overcast sky right here in Nanaimo at Slow Pitch this summer. Radical environmentalists would even have us believe that creating more taxes is going to be the answer. The larger concern about declaring climate emergencies at a local level is that the World Economic Forum, which is publicly connected to the city of Nanaimo as shown in each of their web pages and the Donut Economic Model, blatantly states on their own website that the COVID-19 lockdowns were a test of social responsibility, which is code for public compliance. What happens the next time that these organizations declare a pandemic? Will we be mandated to become lemmings racing over a vaccine cliff to get turbo cancer and myocarditis? In case you haven't realized it yet, the global agenda from these organizations is global depopulation. Caring for the environment is really important, and pollution is a problem. But these artificial climate emergency solutions waste valuable resources and give only the illusion of addressing issues, in my opinion.
1 minute.
Here's Bill Gates himself.
The most effective way to stop the effect humans have on climate change is to reduce the amounts of humans by 99%. But I have no idea how we would do that.
Sure,
The
Bill.
most effective way to stop the effect.
By the way, November is going to be UFO Awareness Month. I now give you the opportunity to demonstrate your sincerity for public education. Okay, that being the case, it's really just, the world's going to change tomorrow on a global scale. And I suspect that any government arrogance at any level will be less tolerated. And it's been really disappointing that you often treat delegates who take the time and effort to come here with such disregard. Like, it was nice to see a few little responses tonight, but that has not been the case the last year.
If you could wrap up, please. Your
I'm
5
wrapped.
minutes are up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Not seeing any questions for Mr. Hula. The next item is reports. 12A, the Cemetery Amendment Bylaw, number 7084.02. Mr. Sims, you're going to introduce this, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm going to quickly toss it over to Mr. Thompson, who is our acting manager of cemeteries. But really, this is a good news story this evening, I think. But in front of you is a report recommending adoption of a bylaw to amend our cemetery bylaw. But I'll let Mr. Thompson describe it. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson, good evening. Welcome, please.
Good evening. It's nice to be here, Your Worship, Council. So as Mr. Sims said, I'm here to discuss the Cemetery Amendment Bylaw number 7084.02. Purpose of the report is to introduce some amendments, primarily to allow for the re-erection of the Commonwealth War Grave Commission memorials. However, when we started opening up this bylaw to affect that amendment, we realized it hadn't been looked at since 2009. So we took the opportunity to look at some of the other things that are in there, some housekeeping amendments. And just for background, the City of Nanaimo owns and operates 3 public cemeteries, Bowen Cemetery, Townsite or Chinese Cemetery, and the Wellington Cemetery. These are licensed by the province under the Cremation, Interment, and Funeral Services Act. So since 2009, that act has changed, and we've been advised to roll those changes into our bylaw, so those are reflected as well. But as I said, the primary goal and purpose of the amendment was to allow for the re-erection of the Commonwealth War Grave Commission memorials. There are 23 memorials in the Bowen Cemetery, and they're the responsibility of the Commonwealth War Grave Commission. We were supposed to undertake a review of those memorials this summer. However, that's been delayed until next spring. But with this amendment in place, it will allow any undertaking or project that the Commission wishes to take to flow through our processes easily. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Thompson before we get to the delegation? If not, Kevin Hills, delegation respecting this matter. Mr. Hills, nice to see you. I think you've heard the drill now. If you could introduce yourself for the record. You'll have 5 minutes, please.
Hi there, Kevin Hills. Okay, good evening, Mayor Krogh and Council. My talk tonight is regarding the proposed amendment to the Nanaimo Cemetery Bylaw, specifically the section on the Commonwealth War Graves. To begin with, I'd like to review the Commonwealth War Graves Commission and its work. Created during the First World War, the mandate of the Commission is to ensure those who died in service are commemorated so they are remembered forever. The Commission, in their work during and after both wars, created the iconic cemeteries in France, Belgium, and Holland with rows and rows of white headstone markers for the fallen. These burials, however, are not limited to the battlefields of Europe. Anywhere in the world that Commonwealth soldiers, sailors, and airmen died in service during these 2 world wars, the Commission has ensured that there are memorials and graves for over 1.7 million men and women. The scale of sacrifice in both wars, because of the scale of sacrifice, each Commonwealth country committed to funding the commission forever. So that is to maintain all the headstones and all the memorials in the world forever. This immaculate and perpetual care can be seen when visiting the cemeteries from Flanders to Juno Beach and from Italy to Hong Kong. I began researching the Commonwealth War Graves Commission several years ago as part of a military history course. They have a fantastic and researchable website which led me to learning that here in Nanaimo we have 26 Commonwealth War Grave burials from both wars, with 23 in the Nanaimo Cemetery on Bowen Road. The following here in Nanaimo include personnel that died from wounds in battle, training accidents, and natural causes. All are considered to have died in service. They are buried here with military honors, and they were buried with an upright Commonwealth War Grave headstone. On visiting the cemetery on Bowen Road, I was surprised to find all of their headstones are laying flat, flush with the ground. Got to scan ahead. I've visited their graves many times now, and it can be seen how the markers are wearing and staining prematurely, with water pooling in the engraved names, moss growing, littered with leaves and grass clippings. In my research, I learned that a massive cemetery renovation happened in the early 1960s, and that all grave markers with writing on only one side were laid flat, including these Commonwealth War Grave headstones. Cemetery markers with writing on more than one side were allowed to stay upright. The cemetery has been this way ever since. As the City of Nanaimo later became the governing authority for the cemetery, a bylaw was written that restricted the installation of raised headstones. Just look at a couple more of the existing headstones here. The Canadian Office of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission has stated that their preference is to have all of their headstones standing upright. They cannot, however, lobby a change to a city's or a municipality's bylaw. I have learned that to stand up these headstones is a two-step process: to seek a change in the present Nanaimo Cemetery bylaw, and to ensure the War Graves Commission follows up to make new headstones and install them upright. Standing up these headstones again would honor a social contract that was made when these men died, that they and their sacrifice would be remembered forever. These 23 fallen include Nanaimo's sons and husbands from both wars.
And 1 minute.
Soldiers who fought at Vimy Ridge, parachuted into France on D-Day. Airmen who flew Spitfires and bombers, patrolled our coasts, and trained pilots for the Commonwealth. And some of whom bore the scars of gunshot wounds, gas attacks, and post-traumatic stress that shortened their lives once they returned home. I'm appearing before Council to respectfully request that the existing Nanaimo Cemetery bylaw be amended to allow an exception for any and all Commonwealth War Grave headstones to be reinstalled standing upright, just as each of the men that they represent stood up for Canada. Lest we forget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hills. Your presentation here tonight is very much appreciated. I think that most of us Canadians take great pride in the fact that this nation made a contribution far above the population would warrant in the normal case, and a corresponding sacrifice as well. And by bringing this to our attention, we recognize that sacrifice. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, if I may, thank you, sir, for being here this evening. I'm familiar with this initiative, and I absolutely support it fully and totally. This is an important part of our city's history, which we need to fully recognize in an appropriate and proper manner. I do have a couple of questions regarding the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. I know they were supposed to visit the city last summer, and that has been delayed, but they will be attending. And what we are doing here tonight, hopefully, is sort of paving the way to allow this process to continue as quickly as possible in terms of getting the stones put upright. When the commission visits, do they have to give their approval for each site to deem it as a stone that should be put up?
They have a rolling inspection program, and they're behind on their inspection program because of COVID and short staffing and stuff. So it's been, I think, upwards of 7 or 8 years that they've been able to come to Nanaimo and visit the headstones here. In the past, because of the existing bylaw, their policy was to inspect the headstone if it needed replacing, just because it was worn out or chipped or whatever. They would replace it on a like-for-like basis. So they would just replace a flat one with a flat one.
I see.
You know, they've got so many headstones to inspect, and they would love to have them all upright and just like the ones in the picture. However, they can't really lobby for that at each individual place. So I'm taking it on faith from my connections in Ottawa that they would, if the bylaw was changed and they were allowed to do it, they would build it into their work order in the next year to have the headstone provider make new headstones and install them upright for us.
And my understanding is that the commission then would be responsible for care and maintenance. Is that correct?
That's always been their mantra. Yes, is they own the headstones. They're the ones who decide who gets a Commonwealth War Grave headstone and all the rights and privileges that come with it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I note a number of our Legion members are here tonight in support of this initiative, and I want to thank them for their attendance as well, and for you and your hard work, and also for Mr. Sims and Mr. Thompson and our city staff who have done a lot of the legwork to prepare for this possible bylaw change that we'll discuss this evening. Very timely with Remembrance Day approaching next week. So thank you again for your work.
Okay, thanks so much for your time.
And if, before you leave the mic, let me just say that we're delighted and honored to see a number of members of both Branch 10 and Branch 256 Legions here tonight. And would just state publicly for the record that on Saturday at a luncheon at the Coast Bastion Hotel, our Member of Parliament honored several of them who were here with us tonight for their nomination in order to potentially receive the King Charles III Coronation Medal. So we recognize that as well. And to you, Mr. Hills, thank you so much for your dedication and your sense of duty in this particular cause, and for actually doing something about it that will make a significant difference here. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Councillor Manley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Cemetery Bylaw Amendment Bylaw 2024 number 7084.02, a bylaw to authorize Commonwealth War Graves Commission memorial and other housekeeping amendments, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Manley.
I move that Cemetery Bylaw Amendment Bylaw 2024 number 7084.02 pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Manley.
I move that Cemetery Bylaw Amendment Bylaw 2024 number 7084.02 pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Well done, Council. The next, Mr. Sims, corollary to it, Mr. Thompson is going to deal with this, I assume, and it is the Cemetery Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw. Mr. Thompson, please.
Thank you. As part of the review in the first report, one of the recommendations was to remove the fees and charges from that bylaw into the city's fees and charges bylaw. So there's a corresponding amendment for that. We'll point out that a very small group of staff are responsible for the operation of these cemeteries, and the charges and fees that were in place in 2009 no longer reflect the value of the work and the value of the property that the cemeteries are on. Specifically, 64% of cemetery operation costs are funded through general revenue and taxation. 36% of the costs are funded through cemetery-generated revenue. In reviewing our charges with respect to similar jurisdictions, it was obvious that we were at the bottom of the pool, and it was an opportunity to raise rates to reflect current economic situation. I will also point out that we have a cemetery operations review that is underway, so these financial proposals are an interim step until that report is completed and we can see the full picture for the cemetery operations to achieve sustainability and provide service in perpetuity or as long as possible for the community. So we've recommended increasing the rates as presented in the table. It may seem to be a dramatic increase, but even with these proposed rates, we're still solidly in the middle of the pack of similar jurisdictions. So we're pretty comfortable with that. And an escalating annual fees is proposed as well. And as I said, these are an interim proposal until the cemetery operations review is complete and we have the full picture.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff? Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff, just a point of curiosity. In the report, the discussion section, it notes that Nanaimo's current cemetery fees are significantly lower than comparable outlying municipalities, and therefore that affordability has made Nanaimo's cemeteries an attractive option. So we attract burials from other communities because our cemetery rates are so low. Is that accurate?
We do have differential fees for Nanaimo residents and non-residents. So non-residents have a higher set of fees. But being as inexpensive as we are attracting a lot of customers. And it's putting a lot of pressure on our ability to continue offering the service. So
oh, please don't say they're dying.
And a follow-up to that, the ministry also uses the cemeteries. Under what circumstances? If there is no family to bury? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thanks, through you, Mayor. Just curious, like the way that the fees are set, is it sort of, are we just benchmarking off of other communities, or do we try to like set it so that it's, you know, revenue neutral in a sense, providing the service, or is there always going to be public subsidy? And I'm just kind of curious how we set that.
Sure, thank you, and through your worship. The cemetery fees are broken out into different activities. The first fee is the right of interment fee, and that's essentially purchasing the plot. So that's the real estate portion. I will point out that Bowen Cemetery is fully sold out, so there's no more revenue coming in from that. We have no plots available for sale. The second part is the interment fees, and that is a cost recovery basis for the effort and time to conduct the interments. You will notice that there's some slightly different rates in the fees for interment. Our cemeteries are run on double depth burial, so the first interment is down quite deep to allow a second interment to be placed on top. So it's more expensive to do that, to dig a larger hole, make sure it's adequately stabilized for the term of the service, and then backfilling and closing it up.
Thanks.
Thank you. Not seeing any further questions. Councillor Manley, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that fees and charges amendment bylaw 2024 number 7336.11, a bylaw to amend the cemetery fees and charges, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Manley.
I move that fees and charges amendment bylaw 2024, number 7336.11, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And I move that fees and charges amendment bylaw 2024, number 7336.11, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Sims. The next item is 12C. It's the rezoning application number RA 504-335 3rd Street. And Mr. Holm, you're going to introduce this, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. This is a rezoning application on 3rd Street, a property outlined in red on the screen. The proposed rezoning is from R1 to Core 1 residential corridor zone. The property is designated as a residential corridor under city plan, the city's official community plan. It's on the 3rd Street corridor, major collector into downtown, and transportation network surrounding, including Wharton and Georgia as local road connections to the property. I won't, I recognize we have a number of delegations prepared to speak to the application, as well as, so I'll keep this quite brief, but happy to take questions. There's a concept that's been presented with the rezoning application, proposes 56 units in 2 buildings, and proposes the access from the property to come from Wharton and Georgia, as you can see. Conceptual site plan again through rezoning overhead. Conditions of rezoning proposed are road dedication, multi-use trail construction, extension of the Georgia Greenway through to 3rd Street to connect with future 3rd Street improvement for complete street reconstruction of 3rd Street in 2025-2026, tentatively scheduled. As well as a condition of rezoning a community amenity contribution, $41 per square meter of building area to be designated to the city's Housing Legacy Reserve Fund. The property, contextually, the property is adjacent to the Cat Stream as well. There's a development permit area for environmental protection that would apply through subsequent development. Development permit for the property should any development be proposed within the Cat Stream required setback. The concept plan shows no encroachment into the required setback, and again, that would be reviewed in detail later should rezoning be approved and a development permit be applied for the property. I'll leave it at that for now. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for Mr. Holm, Councillor Eastmere, then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Through you, can you speak to the feasibility of providing an access, like a right-in, right-out access onto 3rd Street for this property?
Sure, I'll touch on that briefly, and I do have support. Obviously, you can see beside me, I've got Mr. Rose, Manager of Transportation, here as well. Yeah, so 3rd Street is intended to be a collector, so it's intended to serve primarily it's a complete street as we go forward, and it's reconstructed in time. We're anticipating, and actually we have a concept plan that we could share if desired overhead, of the complete street reconstruction of 3rd Street to include pedestrian and enhanced pedestrian and transit infrastructure. This is a concept plan of what's being developed there. Similar to, I guess the closest comparison right now would probably be Metro Drive. You can see cycling, dedicated cycling facility and pedestrian infrastructure, as well as transit stops. So it is possible to provide access, and in fact there is access currently to the residential dwelling on 3rd Street. Currently, it is possible to provide access to 3rd Street, but it could conflict with future pedestrian and transit infrastructure, as well as I mentioned in the introduction, the Georgia Greenway extension is intended to be constructed along the Georgia Street connection to 3rd Street on through the property or adjacent to the property. So it's possible to provide an access there, but there's definitely possibility for conflict. And typically the best practice in providing access is to provide access from the secondary, the lower classification of road, to a more diffuse road network rather than to main road that, in this case, my understanding is handles around 12,000 vehicles per day on 3rd Street. So obviously a fairly busy corridor into the downtown. So additional accesses would interfere with transit, cycling, and pedestrian facilities potentially there. I can expand on that if you'd like, or pass it to a colleague if you'd like. Thank you.
Mr. Rose, do you want to comment? Please.
Excuse me, through your worship. So introducing a right-in, right-out access to this property is a possibility. In addition to what Mr. Holmes has mentioned, I would also highlight that requiring future residents of this property to use the right-in, right-out will do two things. One, it's going to likely introduce delay on the corridor for overall traffic transiting through there. It will also require any of the residents to fundamentally loop the block, because if they're coming from the east, they're not going to be able to turn left into the site, and so it's just going to create more circulation within the network and creating more burden elsewhere. And so I think those are things that are probably worth being mindful of. But practically speaking, if a right-in, right-out is the preferred path, then it is an option. It just has some potential things that just need to be considered.
I really appreciate that information, and I think when I'm asking this, I'm envisioning it as a secondary route in addition to being able to route people through the back streets, so that there would be the two accesses to the property.
Sorry, is the question, could there be like a dual access to the property?
Yeah, it's not a question. I'm just saying that that's when I'm asking this, I'm envisioning that the right-in, right-out would be an option to access, and then diffusing through the other streets would be an alternative exit and entrance to the property.
I think the one thing I would also highlight with that is the grade differential between one side of the property and the other, so it's unlikely you'd be able to have them
For sure, they wouldn't be connected, no, but we do envision there would be the pedestrian connection
Yes.
like the Georgia Greenway.
Correct.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. In order, Councillors Armstrong, Manley, and Hemmings.
Thank you. I used to live on Wharton Street, so I have big concerns about putting traffic through Wharton and Georgia. It was almost impossible some days to get out onto Howard. It's an extremely, it's a crest, it's very dangerous. So I struggle with that, because we used to use Howard because it was too difficult to get onto, at the time it used to be Pine, now Bruce. Very difficult to turn left there in the morning, extremely difficult. I think it's going to cause more problems than if we do 3rd Street. Secondly, this is a proposed plan that council has never seen. I know when we put in the 4th Street bike lane, that was my idea of that we would never put a bike lane on 3rd, because that's a main traffic road, it's a main road. My third point is, you share concerns. Well, this is no different than Metchell Drive. Metchell Drive's going to see over thousands of residents come onto Metchell Drive with the new builds we've now approved. So what is the difference when we're only approving a few hundred versus thousands up on Metchell Drive? So the way it stands right now, and I'll leave my comments for later, it's not supportable for me. Thank you.
I don't think that was a question. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. When I look at the concept drawings, it looks like the parking is down on the lower grade, and that there will be some route for them to get up necessarily to get to Wharton Street. Is that what the plan is, or because you're seeing 3rd and then you see the parking between the two buildings, that's on the lower grade?
Yeah, through your worship. Sorry, through your worship to Councillor Manley's question. Yeah, they're actually in the concept shows them continuing through the building down to the lower parking area. So there's under building parking there that they would come. There's under building parking that they would come in this concept. They're coming from Georgia and Wharton. They're coming through the building down to the lower parking area to address the change in grade.
Oh, okay. So there's like they're going to have to go through some multi-floor thing to get down into the open parking spot there.
Yeah, there is a challenge, definitely a challenging change in grade there.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, my thought would be similar to Councillor Eastmere, that we could have that access and another access just to provide that secondary. I have a question too, just looking on the first page of this, of the report. We see the neighbors 421, 431, 441. It looks like there's a piece in the back that is a right-of-way. Is that correct? Is that for an alley, or is that sewer lines or something? Or because I'm curious, at some point somebody's going to assemble these pieces of property and put up a building there, at which point they would need to be putting traffic onto Third, because there's going to be no way to get out into the other neighborhood.
Yeah, through your worship again to Councillor Manley. Yeah, there is a dedicated laneway there. It would not be possible to construct it. The grades actually through there are quite significant.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is, you're correct, it is dedicated lane between Wharton and Third running parallel there, but it would be not possible to construct it in that location.
Okay. Yeah, I would be supportive of a right-in, right-out on Third as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. The traffic on this one concerns me. The narrowness of the road, the curve, the blind hill, and I'm wondering what it would take to trip a traffic study so council could have more information about exactly what our options might be with this development, because I do think this density in this area is a good idea for all the reasons that the report outlines, but the traffic is, I think you're catching, we're kind of hung up on that, and so I think we would benefit from a deeper investigation and maybe some more options about how we could alleviate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, Councillor Hemmons, you're looking for comment, response, or follow-up? Okay. So, yeah, in this case, so what's proposed here, given the limited scale of what's proposed and the surrounding road network and the capacity of the local roads to handle the traffic generated by the development, we didn't, a traffic impact assessment wasn't required as part of the development. Mr. Rose could speak to the volumes and the dispersion in the network if you'd like, but obviously there would be through subsequent development review, we'd look at the access in more technical detail. But as far as the traffic generated from the development, it didn't warrant a traffic impact assessment. But we can, and there will be obviously detailed design undertaken for Third Street, consideration of with the city's project there to develop a complete street on Third Street. Obviously, there'd be careful consideration to the location of existing accesses and potential for future accesses there as well. So it's more of an access assessment than a traffic impact assessment, I think, is from a technical perspective is what we'd be looking at in this case.
Thank you. I will take your advice on that and suggest that we need access or access assessment. Thank you.
Councillor Prino.
Thank you, Your Worship. And a question through you to Mr. Holmes. I'm just, in the report under the discussion of proposed zoning, the conceptual plan submitted, I'm just wondering if you could explain for us, when you talk about conceptual plans, so what we see as far as drawings and so forth, that's not a done deal. So what does that mean for you? I guess my question is that if we're not going to see a final design until the development permit stage, when you look at a concept plan and you hear the angst that we have about you know, the area and the impact, you know, the density as well as the roads and so forth, what does concept plan mean? What should we be considering as we're looking at that word?
Yeah, thank you through your worship to Councillor Prino. So, yeah, great question. So really staff's analysis, we're looking at the city plan policy. Okay. And that's a big part of it. Yes. And consistency with city plan policy, which the proposed density in this location aligns very well with city plan policy. There's also a technical assessment, obviously, looking at access and servicing the technical feasibility to support the development, and you know, so obviously that's part of it as well. So yeah, as far as the land use, just from a higher level land use perspective, the concept is in line with city plan policy. The technical analysis does support the access that we're talking about from Georgia and Wharton, although as you've heard earlier comment, an access from 3rd Street is not off the table. It's just, it's not ideal.
So it could be as part of the whole concept idea, it could be put in.
Correct. Yeah, and sorry, I should speak further to your question. So this is the rezoning stage.
Yes.
So this is high level, this is conceptual.
Okay.
If this were to progress to
Development permit?
right, exactly. So if rezoning were to complete, if the property were rezoned, we'd be looking at a development permit application.
Okay.
And there'd be further review through that. The concept may look quite different at that point.
Yes.
Obviously, there's a lot of work on the developer side to look at you know, market analysis and see what's feasible and what's in demand, and then there'd be a more detailed technical review, as I mentioned, the access considerations and that as well at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a quick question. I'm aware that we're in the question phase. Just through you to Mr. Holm, can you confirm that the council would, if they chose, it'd be in their prerogative to send this back to staff requesting additional information prior to consideration? Thank you.
Councillor Brown, could you repeat that? I don't think everybody heard your question. Sorry.
Yeah, my question just through you to Mr. Holm is if he could confirm that it would be council's prerogative if they chose, you know, with a motion to send this back to staff to receive additional information before considering it?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Brown. So, of course, it's Councillor's prerogative to choose, you know, to do so if that's the case. Obviously, from a staff perspective, you know, we feel that the application is, as presented, consistent with policy, and the technical analysis supports the proposal as is. You know, we've outlined here that if the concern is regarding access, you know, those concerns can be addressed. If it's a concern regarding land use, it's in line with city plan policy. So I'm, you know, happy to take direction, obviously, from council, but you know, it's as it stands, it's consistent with what we'd expect city plan policy-wise and supportable technically.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
Just for some fast clarification, because I'm not against the project at all. I'm just against the driveway. So if we pass this at rezoning, could we then deal with the access at the development permit time so that the developer would know that we're in support of the project? We just want to see some more work around the plan, and then whatever comes back, that would be done at the DP time. Does that make the most sense? I'm just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, yes, through Your Worship to Councillor Armstrong. Nothing that's being proposed now would preclude access from 3rd Street. There would be a design review if, it's a timing issue as well, because likely the city is going to come forward with the way it's scheduled now, the 3rd Street complete street project likely will happen before the property is developed, and we'd have to do, Mr. Rose and Mr. Rosen's staff would be designing the 3rd Street project and would have to consider access at that point. Would have to provide for access from 3rd Street at that point, and there would be opportunity through development permit to look at different access options for the property.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think it's important that the developer gets a signal one way or another if we're in favor of the project or not. So I'll just leave it at that till we get to the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillors Eastmere and Thorpe, Mr. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Worship. Just adding a little bit into that last question from Councillor Armstrong. Yes, there's the opportunity to further evaluate this as you go on. The reality is the development permit may not actually return to council. It's very much likely that it's one of those that will be delegated to staff. So if council's intent tonight is to only support this land use subject to there being access on 3rd, then I would request that there be actually included in council's motion so that there's clarity about that moving forward.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere?
Yeah, so just for clarification, then when we get to the fourth part of the motion after third reading, there's a motion for council to direct staff to secure the conditions.
Perhaps we could,
No, I'm just clarifying that when we get to that point, then I would move that we include a piece that it be conditional on a right-in, right-out access to Third Street being included as part of the rezoning conditions. So just for clarity.
Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Thorpe, then Councillor Himmons again.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I feel to some extent we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but I do appreciate the comments of Mr. Lindsay about the development permit application that could be forthcoming. Tonight, we're dealing with rezoning, and I think everybody in the room has heard council's concerns about some of the details of this proposed concept, but I don't pretend to be a traffic planner, and I often rely quite rightly on the expertise of our staff. So I think it's fair to say that we might wish to get more information or details or options, but I don't think I am prepared at this point to hold up a rezoning on that basis. So I'm prepared to move ahead with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Himmons?
Thank you, Your Worship. Similar to Councillor Thorpe, I'm not a professional in traffic engineering. I do not feel equipped to suggest where roads should go or not. I don't think that's my job. However, I do hear people at this table saying there's issues with traffic. So I don't know that I can support a motion that derives a resolution from our brains at this table because it's actually the engineers. I would like more information about how that decision is being made and what our options are. I would prefer to do that than offer a solution that staff go ahead and do. I would like to know how the pieces fit together. So I'm going to have trouble supporting a motion that speaks to specifically we want to write in and write out on 3rd Street because that's not my job. I want to know how we're making our decisions. And for this, I am registering. I have some concerns about the traffic. So I'm not sure how to get around this, to be honest.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for staff. How long has the Georgia Greenway been on the city's books, so to speak? I remember celebrating the bridge right next to John Barsby High School a few years back.
Yeah, that's a good question. From my awareness, probably, and Mr. Lindsay might have better, but probably 2010 with, it was in the Harewood Neighborhood Plan.
We're going to refer to the senior guy here. So
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I think the actual idea of the Greenway is dating back to the plan. The actual bridge construction and the major components alongside Barsby, I believe it was 2018 that component was done. So that was kind of the major connection point. The bridge, I believe, very early in council's last term, we opened that bridge, if I recall.
And to you, Mr. Rose, from my perspective, introducing another road onto an existing road does create some issues. I mean, is that, how shall I say, a commonly done thing in what I will call older parts of communities like Nanaimo?
Through your worship, I think that creating a new intersection on a major road does take place. I think when we look at the bigger picture and take into account the surrounding network, we do look for opportunities to make connections to lower classifications of road. But this is a parcel that has double front, or maybe not double frontage technically, but has potential for either option. And I think that there's some elements of having the access on Georgia and Wharton that are quite appealing. It provides sort of a connection into a lower class of road and provides the opportunity to distribute through the network on multiple roads instead of one. It decreases the potential for conflict on 3rd Street, also decreases the potential for congestion on 3rd Street. I don't think that this is, having an access onto Third Street is an option. But when I look at the numbers and how they would distribute through the system and the sort of on the balance, I think I would encourage the Georgia Wharton access, but it's definitely something that either one could be feasible, and maybe with some creativity we could have some sort of a connection to allow for both. But it's it is generally the preference to go to the lower classification of road, just because there's fewer conflicts.
But for practical purposes, introducing access for vehicles onto Third Street from this potential proposal, and it is just potential, would mean that you would be taking the people who you want to use the Georgia Street Greenway, whether it's by bicycle or as pedestrians, introducing them to a certain level of danger that wouldn't otherwise exist with vehicles coming into and driving off that potential access road, which is now an undeveloped walkway, I suppose is the best way I could describe it. Is it even accessible for practical purposes at the present point?
So having the continuation of the Georgia Greenway along this property and then connecting into Third Street just naturally has its own elements of conflict with pedestrians wanting to cross and buses stopping, et cetera. Having an access adjacent that just takes it up a level. And so it's transportation, and there's always decisions and conflicts that are taking place, and we just try and find ways to reduce them as much as possible. And when we can't, we just design them to make it as intuitive and predictable for the users as we can.
Thank you, Councilor Gesserbrock. Looks like the last questions will go to you, and then we do have 7 delegations.
Great, thanks. Just with the delegated authority for the development approval, it just wouldn't come back to council, this is for staff based, because if there's no variances requested? Mr. Lindsay? Jeremy?
Thank you. Yeah, through your worship to Councilor Gesselbrecht. So yeah, as the concept is presented, I mean, delegated authority is a few different things to consider, but based on scale, so it's less than 100 units and variances as well. So yeah, based on the concept that's presented, there aren't any variances proposed, and it's less than 100 units, so it would be delegated. Keep in mind, if it were not delegated and it went to council and variances weren't requested, then council's only really considering the development permit guidelines that apply as well, right? So, yeah, that's what would make it a delegated approval is the scale of it and the lack of major variances. So
right. So if there were variances, it would come to council.
If there were significant variances, yeah, that's right.
Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move a motion.
I'm going to ask Ms. Vicar. I don't think that's appropriate when we have delegations. Is that a fair comment?
Thank you, Your Worship. At this point in time, it will be advisable to hear out the delegations and then to proceed to having a mover and seconder for a motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. The first delegation is Gloria Bell. Ms. Bell, good evening. If you could introduce yourself for the record when you get down to the mic. You'll have 5 minutes, and when there's a minute left, I'll let you know.
I do believe I have, there we go. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor Krogh, and council members. I am Gloria Bell. I'm from 323 Shepherd Avenue, and why am I getting emotional?
Pull the mic in. Yes, thank you. We can hear you.
I'm from 323 Shepherd Avenue. We are a family of 3. We share a boundary, shown here, with 333 3rd Street. This is my childhood home. First off, I acknowledge the necessity to increase housing in Nanaimo. However, I oppose the push for rezoning due to a significant unresolved issues, as I'm going to note below here. Massing, scale, and placement. The massing, scale, and placement of the proposed development is inappropriate and does not align with the surrounding context or the OCP D4.4.5, which is desired outcomes for corridor. To quote that, it says, to ensure and address the interface with adjacent neighborhoods designations by carefully considering design elements such as building site, height, massing, and to ensure a stepped transition in form and scale. A rendering showing an impact of a 70-foot building in close proximity to a single resident family homes in situ would better illustrate this potential abrupt impact created. These considerations highlight the importance of presenting development proposals in a way that accurately reflects the scale and the integration into an existing community. Shadow study. The computer simulated shadow study does not accurately represent reality. 3 points on a single day in March, June, and September are displayed, yet the documents fail to share December set data points and therefore is incomplete. Boundary dispute. As noted on your screen there, there is a boundary dispute. Actually, it's on the next one. I'm not sure how to switch over. But there is a boundary dispute with our property as seen on the topographical site plan provided. This area of dispute is registered and accepted as part of our title, which is survey VIP 8817. If you go back to the previous one, it will show there. It was registered in 2010. The property in question is 7 feet by 150 feet. The survey for 335 third plan, which is 630, Plan 630, was created in 1919. I urge the city to reference their survey documents for Plan VIP 2137 Lot 4, which is to the top right of your screen, and to reference their legal land boundaries as per the document against Plan 630. You may find that the development plans may have incorporated a section of your land, parkland, consisting of approximately 6 feet by 147 feet in their renderings. I should also mention that the photo on the zoning and the staff report actually supports our survey. Due diligence is required. Close to my heart is community engagement. Residents continue to have multiple significant and unresolved inquiries despite numerous emails, letters to developers, to planning, and to council. The community has rallied in the presence of, or the absence of answers. I have personally received 0 responses and questions to concerns requested at the June 27th neighborhood information meeting, where we were asked specifically for input. I have included the name of 14 local residents that have had little or no communication in return. Please feel free to contact those people if you would like. The above items in the past have been managed through the development permit stage and not through rezoning. However, as you know, the new legislation has eliminated public hearings for developments, thereby restricting our ability to communicate constructively to projects as they move forward. That also means council too. If there's no, it just means council too. I would like council to be aware of the following, which is provided to me by City Planning Peyton Carter. At the development permit stage, this is quote, there is no legislative requirement for public consultation or to obtain public input either by applicant, director of planning and development, or council. If we do not assert our voices at this time, we may forfeit
1
our
minute, Ms.
opportunity
Bell.
to do so in the future. In summary, adherence to OCP D445 is essential for proper massing. A shadow study needs to be completed. Boundary disputes must be resolved. And most importantly, community input and public engagement has been insufficient. Mayor Krogh and City Council, as engaged members of our Nanaimo community, we look to you for leadership, for guidance, for stewardship, and key concepts affecting all citizens. Thank you for giving us a voice. In closing, I motion that this bylaw not move to beyond the first reading today due to insufficient public engagement and lack of due diligence on the developer specifically. I should also mention that we have an orchard with over 90 trees that will be significantly affected by this development. and that the developer has not actually put through whether these will be apartments, condos, or rentals.
Thank you. Any questions to the delegation, council? Not seeing any, thank you very much. The next is James McRae. Again, please, no clapping, please. And Mr. Cray, you've heard the drill. If you can introduce yourself for the record, and when there's a minute left, I'll let you know, please. Thank you.
I'm James McRae. Thank you for having me here tonight, and Mayor and council members. I want to thank you for all the work you do in Nanaimo. I know it's a labor of love, and you're probably not really properly paid for what you do. And in this particular instance, I happen to be more directly involved because of the... Do I need to stand a little bit back from this mic? Would that be better?
I was going to say, just straighten it up so you don't...
Like right here?
Straighten it
Like
up
right
and
here?
come forward.
Is
Pull
that-
the mic up.
Oh, put the mic up, yeah, okay.
Thank you. I don't
It's
believe it
kind
is
of
so
wobbly.
bad.
It's not, oh, there we go. Okay, how about now? That's better. It sounded weird. I'm used to speaking in microphones, but not a microphone like this. And anyway, yeah, thank you for being here. And I want to single out Paul Manley and Hillary Eastmore, who actually took the time to contact me numerous times. And also Hillary was gracious enough to come and take a look at the neighborhood. One of the aspects of which you can't see on the map if you haven't been there, the 335 3rd Street is down in a hollow. It's at the bottom of the thing. So maybe if you drive by on 3rd, you see it. So the idea of having the main exit and entrance from Wharton and Georgia is quite a bit higher, and so you're going down. And when I talked to the Jamie Rose at the transportation, as head of transportation, you know, I was suggesting Georgia Avenue, that you just continue it down to 3rd, because this is property that the city owns. And he was saying, well, it's too steep to do that. That was his thing, but it's really not any different if you're going from Wharton down into the property, which is what the proposed development plan shows. So it's the same deal. So that's why a lot of us have been advocating for some kind of entrance and exit off of that laneway right now, which is technically it's Georgia Avenue. And the owner of the property, Jack Stewart, who, you know, lived there until he was 98 and he died. He was a war veteran. He built that house in 1946 after he came back from the war. There was some changes to 3rd, and so they put a laneway along the side there where Georgia is so that he could enter into the property. So yeah, people walk there sometimes, but the people that are living there right now use that laneway. And it makes the most amount of sense to me from a geographical point of view for that to be at least a secondary or somewhat one of the entranceways into the property. And if you've actually, like Councillor Armstrong, who lived on Wharton Street, if you drive up Wharton to Howard, there's a hill right there, and it's a blind spot. It's a tricky place to turn on to Howard, and it's also a tricky place when you're coming up Howard to turn on to Wharton. And I say that from living there for 21 years. And it's just, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Anybody I've told about this idea of having the main and only entrance and exit there, they just think it's a wacky idea. So I'm just, you know, kind of going over in circles here. But I want to really emphasize that. So another aspect is the 2 apartments. And, you know, one idea was that maybe the larger one could be closer to 3rd and the shorter one closer to where we live on Wharton, to have a little bit more privacy. That was one idea that I thought it was a good idea. Another idea, and this is based on something I've been thinking about, is like there's 102 units at the 5-acre spot at 563rd, 102 units. This spot, and that was 5 acres. This is 1 1/4 acres, okay? And you wanted to put 56 units into this. it seems like it's a lot more. They're maximizing on the number of, units for this space. And I don't know how that works, but it sure would be nice if it was a little bit less units and a little bit more green space so that there would just be less of a footprint on this 1.25 acre piece of property. The other thing I want to sort of quickly say is the idea of parking. And parking is on that 563rd, you'll maybe notice the city opened up the 3rd to have a bunch of parking in front of 563rd. It's the big 102 unit building. Across the street, they're doing a similar development. They've got parking there. There's no 2-hour limited parking. People have to pay $70 to $100 a month to park at those places. And so they're parking out on the street. So are they going to do something similar with this development here?
Mr. McRae, your 5 minutes are up. If you could wrap
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry.
Final
Okay.
point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the delegation? Not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. McRae. Please. The next is Jim Hansen.
Hi, I'm calling in. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. If you could just introduce
Okay, thanks for
yourself.
having me.
If you could
Hi,
just
I'm
if you could just listen for a minute, Mr. Hansen. If you could just pay attention. If you could introduce yourself for the record, thank you. And when there's a minute left, I'll let you know. And you have 5 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Hansen. I'm a professional engineer. I went to Georgia Ave. I went to NDSS and graduated in 2001. I brought my practice to Nanaimo. My business is Nanaimo Engineering Services. Excuse the name. I live at 335 Shepherd Ave, and I know we're just at a rezoning, but it's my understanding that now is my time where I can voice my concerns with the conceptual drawings. So I attended the open house and submitted questions for more information. Those questions weren't answered, nor were further explanations. So I'll just leave it at that. So now I'm trying to get as much information as I can and kind of point out some of my concerns to council. So I don't oppose densification and rezoning, but I do oppose the conceptual drawing and that traffic management plan. So primarily with the buildings, it's the orientation. They're taking advantage of the sloping topography to go over 4 stories, and it's too high. And I think they're doing that so that they can get the extra parking and get the number of units. So I just hope that council can look at the orientation of those buildings, and when it comes time to look at any height variances, that we understand that they're already pushing the topography and to take that into consideration. The second point I'd like to talk about before I run out of time is the traffic management plan. And as an engineer, I can attest that sometimes things look better on paper than they do in practice. So while they might meet rules and plans, in practice, those buildings, if they access off Wharton, they all need to get to the same spot. They'll want to get to the highway, and they'll want to connect off of Howard on 3rd, or they'll go downtown. So that all that traffic is basically going to go to one of the worst intersections, and that's Howard and 3rd. And that's where the Fairview kids are crossing. And right now, it's such a high traffic area. So the majority of those people in those units will basically want to either get to the highway, or they're going to go downtown or go up to the intersection at Pine and turn onto Bruce or something like that. So we would basically if we're saying that we don't want that traffic to go directly onto 3rd, they're just going to go down 200 meters and turn onto 3rd there, or turn onto Bruce off of Foster. So I feel like it just makes more sense. The access is already on 3rd Street, that if anyone who's lived in that area would know that putting that traffic onto the Howard intersection is a bad idea. So on paper, great, in practice, bad. So I appreciate everyone who's voiced their concerns about that. And third, for council, please, if you could take into consideration the proximity to the Cat Stream. I briefly read a very light ecological report saying that if they do things right, it could be done. But please, if you have concerns, to please ask more of the developer of them and hold them accountable to their proximity to the Cat Stream.
Are you finished? Or are you frozen?
Oh, I'm back. That's good for me, guys. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, council, and thanks.
Thank you. Please, no clapping. We're trying to conduct a meeting here. This isn't a theater. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Armstrong?
You mentioned that you're an engineer. Can you tell me what type, please?
I went to UBC and I studied mining and mineral processing. In my practice, I provide geoscience and mostly things related to hydrogeology, in particular, lots of highways and that type of development.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Through you, Mayor, just on the question of the cat stream and just space for the footprint, would we run out of space? Would the building have to start encroaching into that 15-meter setback if we were to keep the Georgia Greenway path plus put a 3rd Street entrance on it? Or is there room for that?
Through your worship to Councillor Gesselberg, I mean, that's a getting into site design question, but we'd protect the, this is a concept plan, we'd protect the setback, would be follow the development permit area guidelines and protect the watercourse setback. But the concept that you're proposing would alter the site design. I couldn't speak to the details of accommodating the access in the Georgia Greenway and the impact on the site, but it would impact the site design, and our guidance out of the policy that applies in the guidelines, the development permit area would be to protect the watercourse setback.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. The next is Christine Johnson. Ms. Johnson, good evening. You've been here a while, so you know the drill. Just introduce yourself. Thank you. Try not to disturb the baby.
Well, we can try. Hi, I'm Christine. I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to engage with me, including city staff, city council, many of my neighbors, NALT, the Harewood Neighborhood Association, Old City Neighborhood Association, and faculty at Vancouver Island University. I had several concerns about this proposal in terms of infrastructure strain, environmental regulations, and the traffic safety, which we talked about a little bit tonight.
Come a little closer to the mic, please.
Do this. Is that better?
Better.
Okay. So the proposed development is not consistent with the city plan and ignores guidelines within the Harewood Neighborhood Plan, specifically D4.4.5 in the OCP. It's to do with height variance. And then in the Harewood Neighborhood Plan, it says you're supposed to have a max of 4 stories. And this proposal has 6. But I'm really more concerned with how the traffic is routed. In the conceptual rendering, it's not safe. So while the buildings that go on this parcel of land may change and evolve throughout the development process, the existing infrastructure and the topography will not. We need to feasibly prove that this area can accommodate 56 more homes in a way that is safe for everyone before moving forward in the development process, and that hasn't happened yet. Currently, the conceptual rendering suggests that vehicle traffic from 56 homes added to 335 3rd Street could be routed via Wharton, which is the backside of the parcel. And as we know, there's considerable challenges in terms of blind spots on the hill, and the traffic's really just going to back up onto 3rd anyways, because Howard and 3rd is, as mentioned before, is a pretty tough intersection. So my ask to council tonight is that we hold off on rezoning until a comprehensive traffic survey is complete, just so we can make sure it's safe for everyone living there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the delegation? Not seeing any. Thank you. Please think of the baby, if nothing else. The next is Julia Sheffield. Ms. Sheffield, 5 minutes. Introduce yourself for the record. I'll let you know when there's a minute left. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's Julia Sheffield. I feel nervous standing up.
Don't be nervous, but just get yourself closer to that mic, and then we can all hear you.
How's this? Oh,
Much
that's better.
Thank you.
There we are. My name's Julia Sheffield. I'm the homeowner of 353 Georgia Avenue. I've raised my home and my family in this home for the last 15 years. And I really invite you to imagine, as you consider this rezoning application, that this was your home, your neighborhood, and your family. My primary concern is the traffic. I've sent emails multiple times inviting mayor and council, come walk with me. I make great snacks. Come check it out for yourself and really have a look at the suggestion that all traffic accessing this proposed development come through Wharton and Georgia. It's absolutely wacky. It's wacky. This is a long-established neighborhood. These are not rentals. We have all lived there for decades or more. We know this neighborhood deeply. We know what the traffic is like in that area. Howard, as it's been documented multiple times this evening, Howard and 3rd is a deadly accident waiting to happen. I will not let my children walk that road. There are no footpaths on Howard. Fairview is 4 blocks one way. Georgia Avenue School is 4 blocks another way. NDSS and Barsby. This is not safe for our families to walk in this neighborhood as it currently stands. And the proposal is for 56 more units and 92 more cars. I just cannot get my head around that traffic would be suggested to route through these areas. It makes no sense to me. So my request, just like Christine before me, is that no motion is passed here until we have more information, a deeper traffic impact assessment. I just can't understand how a decision could be made when we don't have the information to make an informed decision. It's in contradiction of the official community plan, page 195, that suggests that safe and accessible movement of walkers, rollers, and cyclists is a key point in this residential corridor. Both Georgia and Wharton are steep roads. We know this. This is the grading piece. We've heard it multiple times this evening. We, as homeowners, get stuck there all the time. The snow there, the gradient is very, very steep. How are emergency vehicles, if the access is only from Georgia and Wharton, how are emergency vehicles going to be able to access the property? Or couriers, or Amazon, or anything else that goes back and forth there? Doesn't make sense to me. I've spoken about the blind turning from Wharton Street onto Howard. It's a deadly accident waiting to happen. I won't let my children walk there. I'll say it again. It's unsafe, and I've lived there for 15 years. What else did I want to say while I have 1 minute and 51 seconds left? I'm curious, again, how the developer can make sense of further increasing traffic in this area when there is an obvious, viable alternative, utilizing space that already exists to create an entrance and exit from 3rd Street. It already exists. It's actually owned by the city. Let's use what's there. To access from George Avenue is to have cars turning from Howard onto Foster or from Bruce onto Foster. Again, these are low visibility turns, difficult to make with high volume on Bruce, with all traffic flowing through a quiet, long-established residential neighborhood. I could go on and on, but I won't. It's getting late.
You have another minute.
I do have another minute. I sincerely, I feel that the points, the concerns of our community have been raised already. You've heard them. We are very concerned about the impacts of traffic routing through Georgia and Wharton. It makes no sense. Please come and walk with me. I make coffee, I make snacks. Come have a look for yourselves. Imagine if it was your family, your neighborhood, your children. So again, I will ask that this proposal not be passed this evening until we have further information that informs a comprehensive traffic study. Why wasn't it done already? It's mind-boggling. I don't get it. I'll stop there. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. Appreciate it. The next is Pros Chan. Good evening. If you could do the usual, introduce yourself. 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when a minute's left. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Pros Chan. I've lived at 429 Street since 2002. Thank you for letting me speak. I'll be honest, I'm not comfortable with public speaking, but I feel it's important to stand up for what's right in our community. My family and I have lived in a 3-generational household, and we plan to stay here as long term. I have future children who will walk to school on Howard Avenue, a road with no sidewalks. It's already hazardous with limited safe crossing options and vehicles speeding by. How can we consider adding new apartment buildings without addressing these safety concerns first? The proposed development at 335 3rd Street would include 2 apartment buildings, one of them 6 stories, unprecedented in our area. I've tried contacting council members about this, but only received one response, which seemed to give the same general answers my neighbors have received. I appreciate the need for housing, and I see many new buildings going up on 3rd Street, but none of them are more than 3 stories high. One of my main concerns with the proposed buildings is that the only entrance and exit would be on Wharton and Georgia, and everybody is saying this, so it's all the same. Was a traffic survey done? The area is already a dangerous blind intersection without sidewalks. Pedestrians, including children walking to school, heading down Howard, walk on a no sidewalk. There's a curb there and a ditch, and it goes to a crosswalk. Like, that's where the children are led to walk down. It's crazy. There's no safe options. Just imagine you're a young child or an elderly person trying to, you know, like my mom, trying to walk on these streets, sharing the road with cars flying over the hill. This just isn't this isn't just inconvenience, it's a real safety hazard. I understand City Councilor Hillary Eastnor visited the spot herself, acknowledging the risks. This development could add 56 units, potentially with multiple bedrooms, meaning large increase in cars, likely 100 or more. Parking in other new developments around town show crowded streets, congestion all over the place. The current plan for a single access point doesn't seem safe for pedestrians. I strongly recommend lowering the number of units in the proposed and adding another access point on 3rd Street, which already has an entrance to the property. My other concern is environmental. The property is near a floodplain, close to a marsh that supports diverse wildlife, including salmon. I've heard that previous developments near this area were denied due to environmental impacts. What's changed? I've enjoyed living here for over 20 years, and I want to work together to meet housing needs, but this development, as it stands, doesn't seem to align with what makes sense for our community. We've built our lives here. I've seen kids grow up on the streets here, neighbors helping each other, and families coming together. This isn't just a place where we live, it's where we belong. Thank you for hearing my concerns. I look forward to an explanation that addresses these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any questions. Appreciate the presentation. Before we go to the last delegation, which is Mr. Seward, thank you. No, I just want to point out there was some suggestion made to staff that Mr. Seward, as the representative of the proponent, was given the last word tonight. In fairness, all the delegations were ordered in the way in which they were received. So the first received was Ms. Bell, and all the way down, Mr. Seward was the last. Mr. Seward, please. And you know the drill.
Good evening, Mayor Grogan, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Toby Seward, 1820 Argyle Avenue, Nanaimo. I'm the agent for the property owners. We've worked with city staff for about 18 months on this project and trying to determine the best way to access it. We certainly started out with a full access from 3rd Street only in our design, and after discussion with staff, they said that's not a viable option. You have to consider the access at Wharton and Georgia, and we had lots of discussion back and forth in that regard, as we've heard around the table and council's discussion. So we changed the access to George Avenue and Wharton Street, and went on the basis that the staff said the technical review confirmed there's adequate access. We certainly heard the comments that it would be better to have 2 accesses, one off 3rd Street, that would allow the cars to go in 2 different directions. As noted by staff, the OCP designation of residential corridor in the zoning to Core 1 supports mid-range construction of 3 to 6 stories. One of the big points of why we put the 6-story building at the back is the first 2 stories are cut into the ground because it's very steep. So actually only 4 stories show out of the at grade level off the Wharton Georgia Avenue because the other 2 stories are below grade. And that below grade construction would allow for a retaining wall to be built so the access could come down the side of the property, which is at about 12%. Well, if we went down Georgia Avenue, it's over 20%, and it's not a viable option. It certainly is a transition area between the downtown and VIU, NIC, and DSS, and this is an area where there's a lot of opportunities for biking, pedestrians, and lots of bus opportunities. We certainly propose a mix of housing units, including 3 bedrooms, which city staff have been encouraging in a lot of respects. So 8 3 bedrooms, 25 2 bedrooms, 19 1 bedroom, and 4 studios. The pedestrian cycling routes are really encouraged in the OCP, and that's certainly what we've tried to work with. In summary, the proposed development is consistent with the city plan policies, and that's what we've worked with. We request that council support first, second, and third reading of this proposal, and we look forward to working with staff to determine how we do this at DP stage as being discussed around the table. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seward. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. A couple through you. You said that your original plan, and that was, I'm assuming, done with traffic engineers, had no issues coming onto 3rd Street. Is that correct?
There certainly was an issue as soon as we brought it in. We thought that was the only viable access because of the steepness up to the Wharton Georgia Avenue access. So we based our initial thinking on that basis.
Okay. And then if you go to the plan where you go off of Georgia and whatever that area, does that increase the cost significantly for the developer to do that versus the 3rd Street?
Yes, it would be an increased cost in particular because the access road off the intersection of Georgia and Wharton would have to be constructed with the retaining wall in place that forms part of the underground parking. Underground parking is extremely expensive. That's why we don't see a lot of it.
And my 3rd and final point, like I said, I lived right on the corner there and would see cars slide off there all the time. And that's not even in the wintertime because it's so steep. Would you straighten out that curve to make it so that it's not as curved and it's not blind when people are coming up?
Certainly part of the development would be, we would have to improve that intersection through our works and services. So street frontage to the center line of the road would have to be improved as part of this development.
And then, sorry, I just thought of one other. And as part of this development, would you be putting in sidewalks in that area where when you're improving the road access?
The sidewalks would be just in the section that fronts this property, which is a small portion of the property right on the corner. But yes, there would be a requirement for that improvements.
But it would still leave kids walking that terrible road. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Prino, then Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and a question through you to Mr. Seward. Mr. Seward, I apologize for my question. I'm just a little unsure. When I drove by it, I didn't see everything that has been discussed. So I'm just questioning when you look at Wharton. I'm thinking of that laneway where the laneway is right now. Is that what you're talking about, where you would be putting that retaining wall? Because I wasn't thinking of that. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. So
because I'm wondering why that couldn't be a way out to 3rd.
So 2 different parts to it. The intersection at Georgia and Wharton.
Yes.
The reason we originally planned to come straight down adjacent to the Georgia Avenue, so down that hill, but in our discussions with our civil engineer and city staff, it couldn't be achieved because it's just too steep. Okay. It's over the grade requirement. So we went down and went parallel to the back property line, which allowed for a much lesser steepness. If we went to 3rd Street or partially to 3rd Street, yes, then half the development could potentially come off the site onto Georgia Avenue onto 3rd Street, though there would be improvements have to be made on Georgia Avenue.
Okay, okay. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Gesselbrook.
Thanks through you, Mayor. Just with the plan to have everything come off of Georgia, did that necessitate to go up 6 stories, or was that always the plan, regardless of whether it was off 3rd or?
The big consideration is achieving the parking requirements for this development, and the only way we could achieve them is put underground parking. So we looked at it and said, do we put underground parking or undergrade parking at the front building and lose a story, or do we put it at the back, which would allow 2 stories of underground parking? But one of the main considerations of that was that it would allow the access to come down there and have build it, as they said, a dual retaining wall that's part of the underground parking, but also the support for the new driveway down into the property.
Right, so to have it come off of Wharton, you'd need to put 2 stories of parking, and that would require to have 6 stories to just make it feasible financially?
The building would be 6 stories from the north, from looking at it from 3rd Street. If you look at it from the intersection of Wharton and Georgia, it would be 4 stories approximately.
Gotcha.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Seward. There's no further questions. Appreciate it. Councillor Hemmons?
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion.
I'm wondering if we should take the break first, because I suspect this may be a bit of a debate. I'm looking at staff.
I don't think it's going to be a debate.
Go ahead, give it your shot.
Thank you. I'd like to move that the application be referred back to staff until an access assessment is completed.
Seconded. Discussion on this.
If I may, Your Worship, I'll just say that I don't think I've ever turned down an infill project. I think this is density where we need it. I hear the street concerns and the children and traffic concerns. I hear all of that pedestrian movement. However, this one in particular, that curve on Wharton, I struggle with it. I struggle with that density and that configuration. So I'd just like to know more about what our options are. And I think that's what this does. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I don't like it, but I'm going to support this as well. And the reason is, and I've never turned down an infill either, what makes this area so important for density is it's close to downtown, it's close to the university, it's close to schools, it's close to incredible recreational facilities and parks. So for me, this is exactly where I think families want to live. But you know, what's turned me is, in fact, Mr. Seward, your discussion at the end about what you wanted to do at the beginning and what it ended up being. And that, for me, was the turning point. I can tell the residents, some of you will never like this, and that's completely understandable. And everyone who spoke tonight, you did a great job, and we heard your concerns. So I want you to know that it was very worthwhile for you to come. But development is never easy. But families coming to this community need homes, and this is a wonderful location to be in. But we need to get this. We need to get this right. So I really appreciate everybody coming here. But Mr. Seward, I think your comments were excellent, and I have to say I'm very much in favor of looking at what he said. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manley, then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm going to support this motion as well. I too have never turned down an infill project, and I think that this is an area where the city plan has designated higher density because of its location, and it's close to downtown, it's close to schools, it makes sense, it's on transit routes. But I do want to see a better plan in terms of traffic and the setup, and I'd just like to know more before we actually make the decision, since it's not going to come back to council again once we do zone it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, then Councillor Thorpe, then Councillor Gus.
My question is through you to staff. I'm just concerned that, is there a way that we can do the rezoning, but not go to DP until we deal with the traffic thing, because I'm just thinking like we're sending such mixed messages, because I'm hearing that most people want to see it, but our concern is very much about the traffic. So is there a way we can do it so that we pass the rezoning, but somehow before we go to DP or whatever, that somehow it can come back to council to look at that plan? I'm gonna look to you or Mr. Lindsay.
Your worship, there may be a technical way to do that, but I don't think staff would recommend that. I think it would be probably
Just leave it alone?
too confusing for both the applicant and the neighborhood.
Okay, that's fine then, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, through you, and thanks to Councillor Armstrong for that question, and that was in my mind as well. I think on the odd occasion I have voted against infill, and I'm not afraid to say that, but I will also say that I quite like this project, and I think it's needed, and I think it has a lot of merit. However, I hear the concerns raised by the residents, and I think they are legitimate, especially in terms of the traffic access and egress. So I will support Councillor Hammond's motion for us to wait and get more information on that. I think on the whole, though, I need to make it clear that I support the concept of the rezoning, and I support most of the features of this project. So on that basis, to get more information regarding traffic and hopefully some other options, which I think are definitely worth reconsideration, then I will support what's on the table. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Kesselbrock.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. Yeah, I definitely think that we need the housing, and this is a good location for it. Appreciate the community coming out and voicing their concerns, and I think it is really important that we've got a safe environment for our kids to move around in, and we're not choked up by traffic, and I think that's an important consideration. So I'd really like to see the Georgia Greenway go through down to 3rd, because I think that gives opportunity for pedestrian traffic and increasing options for movement. And I think it would be good to explore what options would look like for being able to have traffic going into the development off of 3rd. I can appreciate staff's vision of the 3rd Street connector and the complete street through there, and the mobility options through that, and the concern about breaking up that increased active transportation and pedestrian mobility with the traffic turning off, but potentially that may not be as bad as it may seem, and I think exploring that more could find a solution for most folks. And then finally, fitting all those pieces together, is really important that we respect the 15-meter setback of the water course. It's amazing, you know, the Cat Stream feeds into the Chase River, and just down there in the little small section, there's like 30 salmon that are spawning right now, and it's a pretty special thing to have, you know, going through our community, wild salmon spawning, and what to do to keep that healthy is important. So I think there's a few bits to juggle here, but I'm confident that we can make it work for everybody and move forward, but I think a bit more time is wise, so thank you. More information.
Thank you. I appreciate the concerns expressed by the folks in the neighborhood tonight, and lest you think I'm hard-hearted about this, please don't take it that way. Sharon and I have lived in the same house for 41 years, and not long after we moved into the neighborhood, there was a proposal to build what is now Village on the Green, which is a fairly substantial townhouse development aimed at the 55-plus crowd. All of that traffic flows onto Bay Street, which is where our house is. I couldn't oppose it because my wife was actually acting for the developer at the time. And I want to say to you that now that I'm of the age I am, and you will all get old, I hope, I've considered from time to time that it will be really nice to have that number of residences available, so that if we decide to move out of our house, we'll have a place to live that will be suited to aging in place, or aging in your neighborhood, if you will. So I'm not unsympathetic to that concept. I'm also conscious of the fact there's another large property, which is right behind us, that will clearly go to multi-residential at some point. So please don't think I'm unsympathetic to the changes that take place in a neighborhood. I will support the motion because I don't see any sense in attempting to oppose it, given the voices I've heard around this table tonight. But I will tell you that from the perspective of someone who did a little bit of personal injury work in my legal career and appreciating that every intersection is dangerous. Adding another road onto 3rd Street will bring with it significant traffic risks. It's why staff, being as intelligent as they are and able and trained and experts in the area as opposed to amateurs, basically indicated that an access onto 3rd Street was not the sensible way to go. I appreciate your neighborhood faces traffic challenges and will with the addition of 56 potential dwellings. But, you know, 1,600 cars a day, I'm told, pass up and down in front of our house. That is the way this city is going to go because everybody wants to live here. As I've said many times to this council, there were just 2 of us when we moved into that house. And then we had 2 children. And then those children married, and I'm not including their spouses. And amongst them, they had 5 kids. So the 2 has become 9. And everybody wanted to live in Nanaimo, God bless them, and they're still here. So we are the problem, if you will, and our neighborhoods are going to densify and change. And the nature of those neighborhoods will change. It is inevitable. And what council is trying to do when it comes to rezonings, as has been mentioned by several council members, is recognize that densification is important in terms of easy delivery of services, promoting walkability in a sense so that people can get out of their vehicles, but also ensuring that we don't have to expand the city limits in order to entertain, if you will, increasing population. The world has discovered us. We're reproducing like the Krogs on a good enough pace on our own. So, without further ado, all those in favor of the motion? And any opposed? None, thank you. Motion carries. Appreciate the debate and discussion tonight, and thank you to the delegations for coming. We will now take the recess. Staff are past time, and I'm conscious of the work they have to do sitting here tonight. Thank you.
Your Worship, just to clarify, 10-minute recess? A 10-minute recess?
Named after one of Nanaimo's most notable celebrities, Diana Krall Plaza is an open public space in the heart of downtown Nanaimo. The space is one with plenty of potential, but most days it serves as little more than a space to pass through or to access the credit union or public library that have entrances that face the plaza. In essence, Diana Krall Plaza is a space that has yet to find its heartbeat. However, one event does make great use of the space each Thursday evening throughout the summer. The night market along Commercial Street brings food trucks, artisans, vendors, and entertainers in, transforming Diana Krall Plaza into the lively destination it was always meant to be. As downtown Nanaimo is reimagined, the goal for this key plaza is to carry the energy of the night market forward in a way that sees the space used well throughout each day and every season. Diana Krall Plaza was established in the late 1990s when the Port Theatre, the Harbourfront branch of the Vancouver Island Regional Library, and the Harbourfront Parkade were built. The plaza sits atop that parkade. This was a new approach to open space in Nanaimo, but the problem? The plaza was, and typically still is, empty. As the roof of a parkade, the plaza suffers from structural load limitations. The plaza can't support big trees or heavy features. Blank walls on adjacent buildings and minimal art leaves the space feeling uncomfortable and uninviting. Over the years, design ideas were brought forward, but none were realized. That, however, is about to change. In 2020, an advisory committee of volunteers, businesses, Vancouver Island University staff, and students, and the City of Nanaimo came together to re-envision Diana Krall Plaza. Their goal? to create an actionable vision for the plaza that will lead to real change. Building on this groundwork, a project team held community workshops, a design charrette, and put in many hours of volunteer effort to create realistic ideas that would animate the space and make it feel inviting. Features like warm lighting, intriguing art, comfortable seating, and shade will bring the vision to life. The renewed space would also be a multi-purpose and ready for outdoor patio usage, informal play, and many different events, big and small. Now armed with ideas to greatly improve both the physical and social character of Diana Krall Plaza, the design development for the first phase is underway, and with it, a new rhythm is being created for the heart of downtown Nanaimo.
There's a wing flutter of starlings, little specks that swoop low and then rise, gliding over cushions of air, like the gentle crest and trough of ocean waves, to fan out in oblivion. All is quiet and still again. You send ripples through still waters of ponds, making them glisten like 1,000 prisms, bathed in the brilliance of a fall morning. Come dusk, you blow harder, and the leaves of the sprawling oak tree pirouette and glide in the air like little ballerinas, then sink onto the ground below.
Leaders in Training program is a youth leadership program, and I like to say that our main goal is to train youth leaders, and the happy side effect is that we create volunteers in the process.
It's actually been offered for 40 years this summer, which is so exciting, and it's a great opportunity for youth ages 13 to 18 to just come on out, try new things, come out of their bubble a little bit.
And so it's really a program about kids and young people learning about themselves, about their community, about how to be leaders and really give back. LAT program started in 1982, and that's our introductory leadership program. And then if they like the program and they successfully complete it, then they can join our Quest program, which is kind of level 2 of Leaders in Training.
I'm the creator. Yeah, that's me. I started the program 40 years ago because working parks and rec playgrounds, which they hired me to do when I was a wee little thing, I noticed and might have got myself into a little bit of trouble a few times by including youth who needed something to do. And they were hanging around with all these little kids. I'll give you only one story. We did a haunted house and the youth wanted to help me. I'm like, cool beans. And so we want to do oil and noodles and grapes and make this brain thing. I'm like, cool. I remember the little kids loved it. And I do remember they were coming out black because they used car oil. Skip ahead 3 years. And I said, look, we really, really need something for the youth. We need something in the summertime. And that was the creation of the Junior Leadership Program. It went crazy. We had 40 kids the third summer. We expanded into Leaders in Training because the kids kept coming back.
When something works so well, it keeps going and it keeps evolving. And a program like the Leaders in Training, we don't see many programs in local government or in our communities that last that long.
I met Karen in the Junior Leader and then the Leaders in Training program. I know that Karen became wildly and is wildly successful as a fire chief, including our own Nanaimo, and she's moved to the mainland. She was a junior leader, leader in training. She was fabulous, full of energy with the kids.
I looked up a lot to those leaders. I was a leader in training, but those leaders were really strong role models for me. And this is a really good opportunity to have that positive influence in a lot of our young children's lives.
You're putting junior leaders, and these are still pretty young people themselves, with little kids. They have to think past themselves. Those age groups aren't always cooperative. You have to think how to problem solve, how to work with people.
My career now, I obviously manage a large group of people, and that was the first experience doing that. Because it's like where you get to just hang out with the kids.
Can you imagine all of those skills that she took forward into a position of firefighting in itself and helping people who are really anxious and stressed and afraid, and then moving into leadership as chief of fire department?
I've always wanted to be a teacher from as long as I can remember, and LIT
The next item is D, Development Permit Application Number DP 135127 Hispaniola Place. Mr. Holm, please.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Council, if we could have less conversation, the meeting is resumed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. I'll try and be brief on this. This is a development permit for a property on the on Protection Island, on the east coast of Protection Island. That's within the marine foreshore environmentally sensitive area development permit area 1. There's the property outlined in red. The property was subject to Board of Variance approval in 1994 that reduced the setback that applied at the time prior to the property being in a development permit area was 15 meters from the natural boundary. The variance varied that to 7.5 meters. The landowner is looking to do some improvements to the property, including a bit of replacement of an existing deck and boardwalk, and is looking to vary the setback from 15 meters to 4.5 meters, just for, not for the building, but just for the deck and boardwalks replacement and enhancement. As part of that, though, they're actually looking at restoring 382 square meters of existing lawn. So there's a net gain in the quality and quantity of functional habitat related to the proposed improvement, which is consistent with the applicable development permit area guidelines. I'm happy to take any questions. There is a delegation available to take questions as well, but I'm happy to do that if council so chooses. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Holm at the present time? If not, Mr. Midgley, you're the landscape architect. You're here to answer questions. Any questions if he wishes to speak as the delegation? I'm not seeing any. Anyone care to make? Councillor Hemmons makes the recommended motion, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Sure, it's been a fascinating evening for you gentlemen. The next is potential road closure and land exchange 2209 Bowen Road. Ms. Mercer, closing roads.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as Council is aware, we've been working on the Midtown Gateway project for over a decade, and over the last few years, we've installed utilities, have the base of the road formed, and in September, the project reached a major milestone with the new section of Boxwood and Powder Works Road opening to vehicle traffic, as well as cyclists and pedestrians. So while working on the project, we're improving the road circulation, and in some cases, we need to acquire property. In this circumstance, the city requires 185 meters from the SuperSave gas to facilitate a new crosswalk, bike lane, and improvements to the intersection on the corner of Northfield and Bowen Road. So the owner has an opportunity to acquire 250 square meters from the city, from the laneway adjacent to their property, as the laneway is surplus to road requirements. The owner is also agreeable to granting the city statutory right-of-way over the road closure area to permit the city water line connection to the Christ Community Church property on Bowen Road. So therefore, this is a land exchange where equal amounts of land and value are exchanged. And to complete the exchange, staff is asking council to pass first and second readings of the road closure bylaw and approval to enter into the land exchange agreement. So if council wishes to proceed tonight, we will come back for third reading of the road closure bylaw after the required notice of disposition has been published.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Perino?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one very quick question. Does it change the access into the gas station from both Bowen as well as that laneway? Does that change at all?
Your Worship, through Your Worship, that does not change the access to Bowen. And probably the next natural question would be access to the church on Bowen as well.
Yes.
They will maintain their access to Bowen.
Okay.
This will, however that shakes out, will shake out, but they'll also have an access to the new section of Boxwood Road dedicated to their parking lot.
Okay, good. Good, thank you.
It's working for everyone. Councillor Manley?
Hello, hello. I move that council authorize the road closure and disposition of an unnamed lane adjacent to 2209 Bowen Road and direct staff to enter into road closure and land exchange agreement.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Manley?
I move that highway closure and dedication removal bylaw 2024 number 7376 to provide for highway closure and dedication removal of an unnamed lane adjacent to 2209 Bowen Road pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
I move that highway closure dedication removal bylaw 2024 number 7376 pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed?
And I move that council direct staff to proceed with public notice for the closure and disposition of an unnamed lane adjacent to 2209 Bowen Road.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Next is 12F, 2025 Acting Mayor Schedule. Ms. Vikar, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So per the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw, we are required to put forward an acting mayor's schedule on an annual basis, and the schedule that's in front of you tonight mirrors closely the one for this year. The acting mayors are appointed to act on behalf of the mayor when the mayor is not able to or absent from the City Hall.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, just for Councillor Hemmens and myself would like to switch, please, because I'm not available and she's not available in the scheduled months. So myself would go to June 30th to August 10th and Councillor Hemmens February 17th to March 30th.
I'm going to go to Councillor Brown and then Councillor Perino.
Thanks, Your Worship. As you're aware, Councillor Perino and I also connected and would like to swap our periods there.
Did you hear that, Ms. Vikar?
Thank you.
Councillor Perino?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, Councillor Brown, I'm going to take Councillor Brown's time and switch back to my regular time for 2025 again in November. So I'm doing this year as well as Councillor Brown's, which is the first part of next year, and then we'll continue on with our regular for 2025, 26. I'm sorry, it worked. Councillor Brown and I talked it through today.
Ms. Vikar?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion in the report was worded in a way that referred to the schedule as presented in attachment A. So with Council's agreement, for the record, staff will ensure that the proposed changes are reflected in the motion specifying each council member's term as the acting mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion to approve. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And finally, 12G, 2025 Council and Committees Key Date Calendars. Ms. Vikar?
Thank you, Your Worship. So once again, this is a standard report. The Legislative Services brings to Council once a year to set forward the Council and Committee meeting schedule for the new year, and as required by the community charter and council procedure bylaw. Pending council's adoption of the schedules tonight, there will be public notice to inform the public of the meeting dates for the new year. Thank you.
Very good. No questions. Moved by the recommendation, Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We are now on to 13 bylaws. The first is the Property Tax Prepayment Plan Bylaw 2024, number 7390. Councillor Manley.
I move that Property Tax Prepayment Plan Bylaw 2024, number 7390, a bylaw to authorize a property tax prepayment plan, be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. 13B is the User Rates Auto Debit Plan Bylaw 2024, number 7391. Councillor Manley.
I move that User Rates Auto Debit Plan Bylaw 2024, number 7391, a bylaw to authorize a User Rates Auto Debit Plan, be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And as per the letter that's been circulated amongst everybody, there was a letter from the New Hope Center, the Salvation Army, asking for a letter of support for the Salvation Army, specifically to add 28 beds of shelter accommodation to their existing 24 beds. I'd be happy to speak to it if anyone wants, but I'd be happy if somebody would move the... Thank you. Councillor Eastmere, is there any need for discussion? I would think not. All those in favor of the motion and any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Under other business, we have Councillor Armstrong. Your motion re City of Nanaimo Liquor Control Strategy, please.
Public Safety Committee meeting for input. And speak to it if it's seconded.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons.
And just to say, this policy is almost 30-some years old and it needs revisiting, so it was something that staff and the committee thought would be good for them to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Question period, Ms. Vicar.
Oh.
Thank you.
But it doesn't specify which of the.
Yes, okay. Mr. Annesley, Old Faithful, 10A, which particular aspect?
Did at the consent items in general. As you guys know, I've been attending lots of council meetings over the last couple of years. At the last 3 council meetings, I've noticed that you're voting on all items in this on a one-vote basis, which before that was not happening. And clearly discussions are happening off camera with these items. I have noticed, I have asked questions.
I'm going to stop you right there. These items have been discussed publicly at the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting. Motions have been passed in exactly the same terms. They're not being, not the result of items being discussed off camera. And I'm sorry that you might have that impression, or any other member of the public would have that impression. All of these items are discussed, as I say, at the governance, in this particular case, at the Governance Priorities Committee meeting.
In this particular case, but last week, our last council meeting, I asked a question, a financial question, and the information was not readily available, which I would assume that was discussed at an off-camera meeting, and that does seem to contravene your procedural.
Finance and Audit. It was
Finance and Audit Committee meeting. Also an open meeting.
Okay. Why has that changed, though? I am correct that this is something new that's started over the last 3 city council meetings. I'm just wondering why these are just being hammered through and with one vote.
Any member of council, and I'll turn to Councillor Brown in a minute and Councillor Armstrong, any member of council, when it comes to the consent items as per the procedure bylaw, is entitled to ask that that item be pulled even though it represented a majority vote at a Finance and Audit Committee or a Governance and Priorities Committee meeting. They're asked They are given the opportunity to speak to it again, and potentially council could take a contrary position. Generally speaking, it doesn't, because it's already been discussed publicly. People have made up their minds, and that's why it's under this section, adoption of consent items. We'll go to Councillor Brown and then Councillor Armstrong.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I was just going to add that, yeah, as you correctly highlighted, it's in our procedure bylaw. There's some items that are an exception. I think very importantly, the adoption of a financial plan. But you can see the list of amendments within the procedure bylaw, and this has been in there for a very long time. If there's been a perceived change of practice, it was just undoubtedly someone removed something or an item like that. But it's, for as long as I've been on council, we've been using it, and it's there's evidence of that through the procedure bylaws and the associated amendments that are published. Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong?
Just wanted to add, there's never any meetings in secret. There are meetings in camera, which eventually will be released as per the law. But every time we go in camera, we state why we're going in the camera, as you will see in any agenda. So there is no secret meetings. Like they all follow the procedure bylaw, as well as the Local Government Act and Community Charter.
Councillor Gesselbrock, then Councillor Manley.
Thanks, Mayor. So to confirm this, you can go to each item that's on the consent agenda and look at the committee meeting that it was approved on, and you can click on the video and watch the video of that committee meeting where the open debate occurred, and the minutes exist for it. So it just happened that those items get debated and discussed at the committee level, and then they get brought onto the consent agenda, so we don't have to debate it twice and discuss it twice. But there's video of it, so you can go have a look at them all.
Okay. So am I mistaken then that this has been the procedure the whole time? Because it doesn't.
This has been
since I've been coming. I feel like we've been doing line by line discussions, and all of a sudden the last three
No.
council
So
meetings, it seems
this
like
has
we're
been in place, I think, the whole time that I've been on council. It's the practice at the regional district. It's just a way that you can not have to redebate things if they've been thoroughly discussed at the committee level. And then if somebody so chooses to want to go through it again, which every once in a while people do, we pull it out, but there's been zero change in the last 6 years.
Okay.
It's purely the choice of the council members themselves. If they wish to quote-unquote redebate or bring it up because they felt it wasn't appropriate, maybe a council member wasn't here, sometimes something like that gives an opportunity for that council member to be heard, to voice their opinion. But as everyone's pointed out, it all comes from the previous committee meetings. It's all there.
All right. I'll look at a previous video. Maybe I'm mistaken. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thought I'd never hear that. Councillor Armstrong, thank you. Seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor?